If your clematis looked absolutely spectacular back in June, and right now in August the flowers have thinned out, the vine seems stalled, maybe the leaves look a little tired, don't panic. Most of what you're seeing is completely normal, and by the end of this video, you'll know exactly what your clematis needs this month, including what to actually do if it looks like the whole thing has died. Here's the honest truth first. Some gardeners see a stalled vine and start flooding it with water every single evening. Others reach straight for the fertilizer, hopping to force out another round of flowers. And some just grab the pruners and cut the whole thing back hard because they've decided it's finished for the year. Every single one of those instincts causes a real problem. And in the case of one particular symptom that shows up on the large flowered varieties especially, reacting the wrong way can genuinely cost you months of growth you never needed to lose. Before we get into any of it, hit the subscribe button now and drop your US state or your growing zone in the comments. And if you happen to know it, let me know which pruning group your clematis falls into as well. It genuinely changes some of what I'm about to tell you, and I read every single comment. Let's start with the roots, because almost everyone gets this half right and half wrong. You've probably heard the phrase, heads in the sun, feet in the shade. Most people apply exactly half of it. They make sure the vine is climbing somewhere sunny, and then they stop thinking about the root zone completely. That's the mistake, specifically in August, because clematis develops a shallow network of feeder roots sitting close to the soil surface, and afternoon sun heats that top layer of soil fast, sometimes noticeably hotter than the air right above it. When that happens, the plant responds in ways that don't look obviously connected to heat at all. Flower production slows down, leaves lose a bit of their color, new shoots grow more slowly than they should, and during a genuine heat spell, flower buds can actually fail to develop properly at all. The fix doesn't involve moving the plant anywhere. Keep about 2 to 3 inches of mulch, shredded bark or compost, around the base to insulate the soil and hold moisture, but leave a gap right around the crown itself, since piling mulch directly against the stems traps moisture there and invites fungal problems, which is the opposite of what you want. Some growers take this a step further and place a flat stone, a piece of slate, or a clay tile over the root zone instead, which can pull the soil temperature down several degrees while keeping the base of the stem dry. And a dry stem base matters more than people realize, since a damp, humid spot right at the base is exactly where fungal problems tend to get started. A lot of experienced growers also plant low-growing companions right around the base, hardy geraniums, heucheras, creeping phlox. You're not shading the vine itself, you're shading its roots specifically, and that's the part of the plant that's actually struggling in this heat, while the top of the vine is perfectly happy in full sun. Now deadheading, and this is where knowing your plant actually matters, not just as a nice detail, but as the entire deciding factor. Once a clematis flower fades, the plant immediately starts putting energy into producing a seed head. Those fluffy silver seed heads later in the season are genuinely beautiful, so if you love them, leave a few standing, but making them costs the plant resources that could otherwise go into fresh shoots or a second round of blooms. Here's the part most general advice skips entirely. Clematis falls into 3 different pruning groups, and they don't all behave the same way right now. If your vine flowers only once early in the year, on growth it made the previous season, that's typically a Group 1 variety, and it's usually already finished blooming for the year by August, so heavy deadheading right now isn't really the relevant task for it. If your vine gave you one big flush of large flowers back in early summer, and you're hopping for a second, lighter round later in the season, that's very likely a Group 2 variety, the large flowered hybrids. And this is exactly the group where deadheading right now determines whether that second flush actually happens or not. And if your vine flowers only on brand new growth and its main show is really still ahead of it later this summer into fall, that's a Group 3 variety, and it's generally left alone at this point rather than deadheaded, since you're not trying to trigger a repeat bloom, you're just letting it build toward its actual season. For those Group 2 repeat bloomers specifically, follow the faded flower stem down to the first strong pair of healthy leaves, and make a clean cut just above that leaf joint. That one cut redirects the plant's energy toward new flowering growth instead of finishing out old seed production. If you're not sure which group your clematis belongs to, save the plant tag next time you buy one. It becomes genuinely useful information months later, right around the exact moment a decision like this one comes up. Next, the new growth, and this is the part almost everyone ignores completely. Everyone assumes the thick, older stems are the part of the plant that needs attention, but honestly, they're not the concern in August. Look at the growing tips instead. Those soft green shoots can extend several inches in a single week during active growth, and they climb by wrapping their leaf stalks around anything thin enough to grip, wire, twine, a narrow trellis. And I mean genuinely thin here. Clematis can't grip anything much thicker than about 3/4 of an inch across on its own, so a thick wooden trellis slat or a wide post does nothing for it without some wire or netting added. If you don't guide these soft shoots while they're still flexible, they tangle with each other, and summer wind can twist or snap them right off. Once those same stems harden into wood later on, repositioning them gets genuinely difficult and often just breaks them instead. Spend a few minutes every week or two gently directing new shoots toward open sections of the support, rather than letting them all pile up in one spot. Use soft ties only if you need them, and keep them loose, since clematis stems thicken fast during active growth, and a tight tie will girdle the stem as it grows, which also happens to create exactly the kind of wound that invites disease in later, something we'll come back to in a minute. This habit pays off in a way most gardeners don't notice until later years. Instead of every flower clustering near the top of the trellis, you get blooms distributed from the base all the way up. If this is the first time anyone's actually walked you through the reasoning behind clematis care, instead of just handing you a checklist, go ahead and hit subscribe right now. This channel goes deep on exactly this kind of plant-specific detail every single week. Now let's talk about reading the leaves, because flowers come and go, but leaves stick around for months, which makes them one of the best early indicators of how your clematis is actually doing. Healthy leaves are firm, evenly colored, free of unusual spotting. If the older leaves near the base are yellowing while new growth up top stays healthy, that's usually just normal agging as the plant redirects energy upward, not a problem at all. Uniform pale leaves across the entire vine tell a different story though, and usually point to a nutrient imbalance, prolonged water stress, or compacted soil restricting the roots. Brown, crispy edges typically show up after a stretch of intense heat combined with inconsistent watering. White, powdery patches point to powdery mildew, especially wherever airflow around the vine is poor. Before reaching for any treatment the moment you spot a blemish, check the actual growing conditions first. Has a nearby shrub crowded the base? Is the soil staying constantly wet? Is mulch piled up against the stems? Is there enough sun and airflow for the foliage to dry out after rain? Fixing the environment solves most of these problems before they ever become serious. One more thing worth checking specifically this month. Flip a few leaves over and look at the undersides. Spider mites get more active in hot, dry weather, and because they're nearly invisible, you'll usually spot the damage first, tiny pale speckling, leaves losing their rich green color, before you ever spot the mites themselves. If you catch it early, keeping the soil consistently moist and knocking the undersides of the leaves with a firm spray of water handles most light infestations without needing any spray treatment at all. Now the section that actually matters most, the reason this video has the title it does. Few phrases make clematis growers more nervous than clematis wilt, and the instinct the moment a stem looks limp is to assume the disease has arrived and start cutting the whole plant down. But not every wilted clematis actually has wilt. In August, it's completely normal for a vine, especially a large flowered hybrid, to look a little droopy during the hottest part of the afternoon and then fully recover by evening or the next morning. That's just a heat response. The leaves stay green and pliable the whole time. Nothing structural has actually gone wrong. True clematis wilt is a different animal entirely, and it's worth understanding exactly what's happening underneath it, because it makes the whole thing far less scary. It's caused by a specific soil-borne fungus, and that fungus needs a wound to get in, an insect bite, a stem getting twisted by wind, even a tie rubbing against the stem too tightly. Remember that detail from earlier. Once it's inside, it moves into the water-carrying tissue of the stem and physically blocks it. The result is dramatic and fast. One previously healthy stem can go from completely fine to jet black within a day or two, leaves and flowers shriveling almost overnight, while the rest of the plant sitting right next to it stays perfectly healthy and unaffected. That contrast is really the entire diagnostic tool you need. Gradual and reversible means heat. Sudden, localized, and severe on one isolated stem means wilt. If you see true wilt, don't panic, and don't pull the whole plant out of the ground. Follow the affected stem down toward the base and cut it back several inches below the damaged section, using clean pruners, and wipe the blade with rubbing alcohol between cuts so you're not spreading it to a healthy stem next. Dispose of that material in the trash, not the compost pile. And here's the part that should genuinely change how you feel about this. Clematis is typically planted a few inches deeper than it sat in its original nursery pot, specifically so there are dormant buds sitting below soil level, protected from exactly this kind of damage. If a stem is lost to wilt, or even if the entire visible plant collapses, those buried buds are very often still alive, sitting on stored energy in the root system. In a lot of cases, a clematis that looks completely dead will simply stay quiet for several weeks, sometimes even through the rest of the season, before those hidden buds send up brand new growth once conditions settle down. The lesson here isn't to fear wilt. It's to identify it correctly, cut back only what's actually affected, and then wait, because the plant underground is very often still very much alive. Let's talk about feeding, because this is not the month for pushing growth, it's the month for steady, balanced recovery. When that spring flower show fades, the instinct is to hit the plant with more fertilizer to force it back into bloom. This usually backfires. A high nitrogen feed produces lush, soft, fast growth that looks impressive at first, but flower production actually slows down because the plant is investing in leaves instead of buds. That soft new growth is also more vulnerable to fungal disease and physical damage from a summer storm, and it doesn't have time to harden properly before cooler weather shows up later in the year. If your clematis is growing in decent garden soil with compost worked in regularly, it may need very little extra feeding right now. Container-grown vines are the real exception here, since regular watering flushes nutrients out of potting mix faster than it does in the ground, so a bit more attention to feeding is genuinely worthwhile for those. Either way though, this is a month to ease off anything nitrogen heavy and let the plant focus on building strength rather than pushing more leafy growth. One more task, and it's the one almost nobody puts on a clematis care list: checking your supports before a summer storm checks them for you. By this point in the season, your vine has likely added several feet of new growth, which means a lot more surface area for wind to catch. A trellis, wire, or arbor that held up perfectly fine back in spring can fail without warning once that load increases, and because mature clematis stems get woody and brittle, a broken vine often can't be repaired at all. Spend a few minutes checking screws, brackets, and ties. Replace any garden twine that's gone brittle in the sun. And keep an eye out for any stem rubbing repeatedly against rough wood or metal, because that friction damages the bark and creates exactly the kind of entry point that invites the wilt fungus we just talked about. As you're getting new growth this month, spreading it evenly across the support instead of letting it pile up at the top also helps here, better airflow. And the wind load gets distributed across the whole structure instead of concentrated in one spot. Here's the bigger picture worth keeping in mind through all of this. August isn't just about this year's flowers, it's quietly shaping next year's display too. Consistent watering, healthy disease-free leaves, properly supported stems, and steady rather than excessive feeding all build a stronger vine capable of a better show next year. Resist the urge to keep fixing your clematis every few days. These vines respond better to consistency than constant intervention. So here's your complete August clematis checklist. Keep the root zone cool with mulch, a flat stone or companion planting, but leave breathing room around the crown. Deadhead spent flowers only if you're working with a repeat blooming group 2 variety, since that's the group where it actually matters right now. Guide new soft growth onto the support while it's still flexible. Check leaf color regularly, since it usually reveals a problem before the flowers do. Learn to tell real clematis wilt apart from ordinary afternoon heat droop before you cut anything back or panic. Ease off any nitrogen-heavy feed and focus on steady, balanced growth instead. And walk your supports for loose ties, worn twine, or rubbing stems before storm season gets here. Let me know 2 things in the comments before you go. Which clematis are you growing? A large flowered hybrid, a Viticella, a Montana, something else? And what's the biggest issue your vine is dealing with right now? I read every single comment, and your answers genuinely shape what this channel covers next. If you'd rather understand exactly why your plant needs something instead of just being handed a checklist, hit subscribe, since that's the whole point of this channel. Now go check your clematis, and look at the roots before you look at the flowers.